we have identified out of three overall locations down towards the south side, this large lawn, open lawn area at the Campbell Nelson dealership. We had taken a look at some areas a little bit further north, but eventually landed on this being a really great location because there is a lot of real estate here for not only a sign, but potentially landscape, maybe some other art or architectural features. It has really great, a really great view into this area from those northbound lanes. And being so close to the southern edge of Edmonds, right away as you're driving into Edmonds, you're getting that welcome. And let's see here. So looking at it in the picture, this red box here does not indicate a sign at all. It's just the location of where we're looking at for that sign. Another really great thing about this location is that as you're stopped at the intersection at 205th, just off the map here, as you start to get going into Edmonds, you're increasing your vehicular speed, but you're still going kind of slow. So it really increases the opportunity to kind of be going slow and get a better view of the gateway sign here than when we kind of looked at some of the more northern areas where vehicle speed would tend to increase at that point. Okay. So looking at our different sign type options for this area, we have a more vertical sign shown here in this white clouded box. It could be a little bit over here, a little bit over here, maybe a little taller, maybe a little shorter, but generally this gives you an idea of what the overall shape and feel of a vertical sign might be. It also has a really nice backdrop of those existing conifer trees along Highway 104 right here. The more vertical sign compared to a horizontal sign is something a little, it's unique and it's different. You don't often see the vertical sign type, especially along the Highway 99 corridor. And so we've kind of identified that as something that could be very unique and special at the south side. On the flip side, we've shown a more horizontal sign, which could be a monument sign with a more of the concrete base that you tend to see, or something similar to some of the other Edmonds signs on posts with a sign panel. And so both of these you can see have a lot of opportunities to integrate landscape as well around them. Okay, so when we're going to talk about vertical and horizontal signs throughout the presentation. So just to give you an idea what we're talking about when we're talking about a vertical sign, we've shown some images here, examples of what other vertical signs have looked like. They can be very traditional with natural materials integrated, or something a little more modern like these are showing. You tend to get text on the vertical signs that's turned vertically or up and down like you see on the Danville sign here, but there's also opportunities to have words on a more vertical sign going reading horizontally. And there's a lot of creative ideas that can happen with these vertical signs. And then some examples of a horizontal sign. We're showing more monument style signs over here on the left. But one thing that's very nice is you have a lot of horizontal real estate on these types of signs. So you can get maybe a longer message or reading the message horizontally rather than vertically. Okay, so we're going to switch now to the north location. So we were just here at the south location, and now we're going to switch to the north here. And so I'm going to zoom in. It's a little bit harder to orient to where you are on the north side compared to the south side. So we have 208th Street up north here, and 212th Street just on the south side of this sign location. We're right at the Edmonds border, right about, I guess it's right about here. And the Jack in the Box is right here on the corner of 212th. It's dinner time, so I keep orienting us based on where to find food. But the post office is up here as well. So just to give you an orientation of where we are. Okay, so we've zoomed in on that north location now. If you're driving south into Edmonds, you're here in these lanes and you're coming left across the screen, coming south from Linwood. Now, in the overall revitalization project, this area is one area where a raised median would occur. And so this shape right here in the middle of Highway 99 is one of those raised medians. And so we've identified two locations at the north side. We've identified the first one, which would be located in the median itself, up on that raised median. The second location is in a planted area that's at the Magic Toyota dealership. And so this is actually Magic Toyota dealership property right here, rather than within the washed out right of way. And so it has a sloping landscape area here. You often see cars parked like how they are here in the aerial. And then the third alternative for the north side is to do a little bit of both. So maybe having a median sign, but then also an element off to the back of the sidewalk. Okay, so here are a couple of options showing what a median sign might look like. So one of the things we noticed about having a median sign that would add a lot to this gateway is that not only could you view it coming south in the southbound lanes where the message might be as it welcomes you to Edmonds, but you could also have an experience coming north into Linwood as you leave Edmonds. There could be something on the back of that sign, not necessarily words, but maybe something more graphic or visual at the back of that sign to just increase that experience of the gateway. And then also one nice thing about the median location, this raised median is approximately 2 feet high. And so it adds some protection from vehicular traffic for that sign. And then we've also identified an alternative where we do the median sign, but then also have an architectural element off to the back of the sidewalk over in the landscape area. This we're seeing as something more pedestrian in scale. It's maybe some sculptural art or something artistic or architectural that's really working in tandem with the landscape that would go there. And so these two elements on either side of the southbound lanes could be more of a beacon as you enter Edmonds. Okay, and so the next set of options for the north is to have a vertical sign at the back of the sidewalk. And there's similar pros and cons at the back of the sidewalk. So I'll just say the other option is to have a horizontal sign at the back of the sidewalk. As you can see, there's at the Magic Toyota dealership, there is an existing tall sign here, and it's here in the white color. We've got overhead lines running above the landscape area, existing lights, and a lot of existing bollards and a mailbox. All of these things are contributing to some visual clutter off at the back of the sidewalk location. To add to that, it is within private property. And so there would have to be a process of right-of-way acquisition to locate a sign here. Now for the horizontal sign, really similarly, but I will add that the sloped landscape over here is a great opportunity for landscape, and there is space there for it. However, you can see that the sign itself gets cut off because of that grade rising. And so there's not as much room for words or information on that sign. So considering those pros and cons of each of these, we thought that one potential idea would be to take advantage of that median sign at the north location, along with that architectural element playing off of the same style on either side, but then pairing it with another vertical sign at the south side, as well. So it's really, it is two beacons on either end of Edmonds as you enter this corridor. And then again, just to reiterate, that tall vertical sign, we see it as being something very unique and distinctive for this area, and have just allowing ample space for landscape or lighting elements, or potentially a retaining wall or other kinds of architectural elements to really support that idea of landscape and the sign working together in the gateway. And then there were some example signs just to remind you of what we're talking about with vertical signs. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Clayton, and he's gonna go into some detail on the sign architecture.
Thank you, Rachel. So it's interesting that in terms of the big picture, Rachel just addressed 3 of the 6 most critical elements needed for what, in my opinion, to be a successful gateway sign design. She talked about the strategic location. This is incredibly important because if you don't have that sweet spot, people will drive by, miss the statement, and it doesn't become a memorable landmark for the city of Edmonds or have any value at all. Secondly, she talked about the idea that you have to have a available land area. So this is an interesting subject because as kind of a sign architect who has architectural background, if a client came to me and said, this is the size of my lot, then I need to understand that and the design accordingly. So if we're in the city of Seattle and it's a skinny lot, then I'm going to design a skinny house, 3 stories high, whatever. So that's interesting. And then thirdly, this comes hand in hand with that, is the suitable sign shapes, like what kind of architecture for the sign would fit best within a given land area. So, I really appreciate that. So I guess now I'd like to touch on the other 3 ingredients of the 6 most critical elements, and that would be the legibility, letter style, and kind of message content. So those are the 3 subjects that help me to design a sign. The more information I get on legibility, letter style, and message content, the better the sign design is going to be. So starting with this legibility analysis that Rachel has up on the screen, I find this a really useful chart. It was developed, I think, from the University of Pennsylvania back in the mid-60s, early 60s, for the National Highway Transportation Committee. And the idea was that we really need to understand what scale, what size of letter and size of sign that we need on this freeway system that's across the United States, because it's a life and safety issue. You can't have people screeching their brakes because the sign wasn't placed in the right spot or the letters weren't the right size. So I refer to this oftentimes, and the interesting thing I see here is that in the red, the 20-inch height, given the environmental context of along 99 corridor, it appears to me that a 20-inch, 18-inch, somewhere in that neighborhood, 16-inch perhaps, is the ideal size in order to communicate to the traffic that's heading northbound or southbound. So the cool thing about this is that once you determine the height, then you can calculate the approximate line length of the message. So in this diagram, it shows approximate 7 foot. So that's really good because that's going to drive the size of the sign. We don't want to make a sign too small and then force the letters to fit within it. We want to understand what the letters need to be and then make the sign form follows function. So this is great. And so I think that we could, go to the next slide. There's, there's an art and science to effective sign design, but science has to come first because it doesn't matter how beautiful the sign is if nobody can find it. So when we talk about what should the sign say, the more words, well, then maybe the more difficult it is for a vehicle with passengers to decipher what the message is. So, but on the other hand, you need to convey a certain message to that traffic that this is, is it welcome to Edmonds, the entire city? Is it welcome to a certain segment like Phil was talking about earlier about uptown Edmonds or some other neighborhood aspect? And Rachel, you can speak to some of this. It's like, welcome to blank, blank, blank Edmonds. We can't say welcome to Deadmonds, but we could maybe fill in the blank. Then there's and then there's the simple basic message of Edmonds.
Mhm.
So Rachel, do you have any comments on this page?
I think I would just add that this is a very simple way to add continuity with the other Edmund signs, is have the same message but a different design, or um, maybe the same design but a different message. And we've heard a couple of things what might fill in this blank, but we would also just really love to hear how you would like to identify the north and south locations.
And that question's on the survey, right?
Yep, it sure
Okay,
is.
okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess that's about it. Okay, so on the Edmonds. So as it says up the top here, which of the letters shall be font? Can it be used as a means of visually connecting the different gateway signs? So yes, it can. And one of the things we don't want to do is have too many fonts on different gateway signs, because it's just going to lead to different messages and like which Edmonds am I entering? So we want to have some consistency and some coherent quality to the sign. So I think that the sign to the left, the gateway downtown, the community, I'm basically a designer, and if I'm a good designer, I'm going to listen to what the community is saying, what my clients are saying. And so what the community said back then, about a year and a half ago or so, they wanted cursive downtown gateway because it's cursive lettering, because it's expressive, and it creates a reference to the previous vintage sign. And I think that's a good message, and I listened to it, and that's why this sign is shaped the way it is and uses the font that it does. On the other thing, in terms of legibility, cursive works well in this particular setting because it's a huge landscape area available as a backdrop. There isn't any other sign within, I think, 1,000 feet of this sign. And so it's the lead singer. So all that works together to say cursive works well. So on to the right side, we have a kind of a hybrid sign that does two things. One, it identifies the Westgate neighborhood. And there's other of these types of signs that identify other neighborhoods. And it's a color coordinated palette that changes a little bit for variety and uniqueness. But the base directional information is a standard throughout all the different locations for this type of sign. It's the primary objective of this wayfinding sign is to communicate direction. However, in addition to that functional requirement, the community also wanted an artful element and some colors to convey, a clean air, a natural setting, an environment that Edmonds appreciates and we honor. We have a passion to it. It's why most of us moved here. So when you go up to the top of the sign, there's a playful art element that's called a finial detail. It says Edmonds, and it's kind of this swoosh, wavy form. It's a natural aluminum metal that reflects the sunlight, and it's casual. It's abstract, but it just adds a little bit of playfulness and personality to what otherwise would be a somewhat standard, looking wayfinding sign. So I guess, yeah, so the colors too, I think, were selected, also being informed by the community in that, hey, we're not, the downtown industrial Safeco field area. We're basically Edmonds. And the reason why a lot of us moved out here is because of the natural setting, the peacefulness, and the restfulness that this area gives us. So I'm listening to that and saying, okay, well, let's use some nice, bright, natural green colors and blues and other non-commercial type colors in the color of this sign. So yeah, colors can convey clean air, natural setting.
Clayton, I think we will probably want to move on to the next slide here so we can make sure to have room for some discussion, okay?
Okay, so I got another 1,000 words to say. No, go ahead. Next slide.
Okay, I will move through these a little bit, a little quickly. So we do have three, the next three slides are showing just some inspiring images for how the signs and the landscape can come together and what that character might be. These are not at all the only characters that could be identified for the signs, but based on some initial feedback that we've heard, we're thinking potentially a more traditional gateway character with natural elements in the signs or even in the landscape. Celebrating history of the Highway 99 corridor or Edmonds as a whole, and really celebrating native plants and agriculture that you would see in this region. So you don't see a whole lot of big fields planted with flowers, but what you do see here in Edmonds is the flower markets and forested areas, as well as the seaside. And then let's see here. So the next one is a more modern gateway character, something to celebrate the future and vision of the corridor and sustainability. So drought tolerant plantings and natural looking colors, potentially some Corten steel integrated. The design of the sign itself could integrate nature as well. Thinking of the Five Corners roundabout as well. That's a gateway element that really does a good job celebrating that modern character that we're thinking. And then the third idea that we have is a more contemporary idea, something to celebrate the art and the culture that happens here in Edmonds, and especially along the corridor. And so we're thinking things that are a little more playful or natural in their design. Lighting and color could be a very big part of a more contemporary gateway character. So like I said, those are three ideas. We're looking forward to hearing what other ideas you have. And so to wrap us up here, before we get going into the discussion, just thank you everyone for participating. As the project progresses, feel free to come back to the Edmonds 99 corridor webpage for more information, how the project is progressing and what the next steps are. When we do come back at the next community meeting, we're going to have all those graphics showing sign designs and landscape designs as well. So we hope to see you at that next one. And then definitely we'll put this survey link in the chat so you can copy and paste it or just click on it. But there's a QR code and the SurveyMonkey link right here. It's going to be open through midnight on August 15th, which is next Sunday. So feel free to share that with other Edmonds residents, and please don't forget to take that. So with that, Bertrand or Phil or Clayton, if you have anything else to add before we turn it over for questions.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah, if you can open up the question, it'll be good. We have about 15, 20 minutes.
Roger, I see your hand raised.